In this video, I'm going to be giving you an update on my personal finances. It's been quite some time that I've done a video regarding a net worth update. I believe 3 to 4 months was the last update I gave you guys, all the last net worth update. I also think it's very important to do this too because it's been almost a year since I've made my first video, and basically what this video was about was my net worth and how I used my investment portfolio to build my net worth. And again, that happened about a year ago, and that was the original intent of this channel. It was to be a kind of journal along the way, a video journal of my net worth or personal finance progress over time. And I also think that based on the engagement of this video, this seemed to be my most popular video, and probably because people definitely enjoy hearing about stories from others, whether they compare themselves or just gain some insight into other people's portfolios or how they build their net worth. And before we begin, if you do appreciate content like this, definitely give this video a like to get this content out there. It also helped me understand if this kind of content is what you guys enjoy, maybe a little bit more than the typical content of just explaining different ETFs and how they operate. Of course, I'll still make those too along the way, but I definitely want to know if you guys enjoy kind of keeping up to date and just tracking my progress along the way, maybe to kind of compare against one way or the other. And if you're not already subscribed, definitely please subscribe for future content to see more content like this. Now, when it comes to tracking my net worth, I think a lot of people have their own way of doing this. Some people use apps, some people use spreadsheets like me. That is what I do. And every single month, like clockwork, since November 2020, I have been tracking my net worth, the amount of the assets I have, the debt that I have, and then of course the overall net worth and the percent change and dollar change month to month. And I've been doing that every single month. I think there were only 2 times I missed, and I think that one of the times it was because a file got deleted, and then the other time I was at a wedding and I didn't have the opportunity to track it. So I just used an average for those months, but for pretty much 99% of the tracking time, I have been tracking month to month without fail. And so basically this column here, these numbers are my age, and I kind of do that just to keep an idea of where I was at that time. And then on the other columns, of course, I went over how that tracks, but I keep the assets that I hold here no matter what they are. So I have like ally accounts, and that's savings, CDs, so that's pretty much cash. My M1 Finance growth account and income account, that is typically what you guys normally see on this channel, what I show when these videos begin. And then also I do have these here that I discontinued along the way. My Chase accounts, which are pretty small in relation, I use these as basically pass-through accounts. So all of my income goes through one of my Chase checking accounts, and then it gets routed out depending on where it needs to go. My Regions savings account is kind of like an interim savings account. Once I hit a certain amount of money in that account, I pretty much direct the funds wherever I want them to go. My 401k IRA, that's, retirement, my HSA, health savings account, and I also include my car because it is an asset, even though it's the depreciating asset. As far as my liabilities go, I did have student loans. Fortunately, I paid them off several months ago. I think that was probably, I want to say around like October of 2023. And then all of these other accounts here are basically, so my credit card, so Chase credit card, Regions credit card, Busey credit card, and then M1 Borrow, that is basically a line of credit that you can use through M1 Finance. I don't use it, but the option is still there. And then of course the car loan that I did have, and I also paid that off. That is why it's whited out. And then I also track my monthly dividend income, my monthly expenses, and my monthly expenses I don't track to the T. I pretty much have it projected. And then I do a monthly dividend income divided by monthly expenses to basically see how much of my monthly expenses could be paid through my passive income through dividends. And a question that some of you may be asking is, why don't I just delete these rows here of these whited out columns like my M1 high risk and my Robinhood and my real estate? And that's pretty much because if I did that, it would mess with the overall holdings. So like it wouldn't track very well if I deleted this, because this column would be deleted and then I'd have no net worth in this column to go with that time. So I kind of have to keep it there, even though it kind of keeps it maybe a little bit of an eyesore. But I tried to delete it in my own way, but I just couldn't get it done no matter what I did. It turns out that I just got to keep it, I feel. Anyway, so pretty much how have things been going over the past few months? And things for the most part have been going, decently. My net worth, since I think I did the last video, has gone up by about $11,000 since I think it was January. And then, of course, as you all know, recently the market took a decline. So that's definitely reflected in that negative $5,000 over the past month. And, listen, that's to be expected when you are building your net worth. You're going to have good months and bad months. And this month in March was a very good month, and I don't want to make it seem like that's typical, because what my employer does is they do a single deposit for my 401k in March. So they gave me like an extra $10,000 in that month. So that's why that is so high and looks so well. But still, overall, went pretty well until, of course, April, but nonetheless, my net worth is pretty much increasing as anticipated. So kind of how do I grow my net worth? The most common way I think most people in the United States grow their net worth is kind of two ways, either through real estate appreciation of their homes or through investment, whether that be through taxable accounts or retirement accounts. Those are the two number one ways people do it. Of course, there are other ways. Some people might own a business or whatever it may be, but definitely the most two common ways are either owning real estate or equities. And if you notice here on my M1 Finance Growth and my M1 Finance Income, they pretty much go up quite often. So I'm kind of just going to go back and show you how that is. If you look, every single month, it's pretty much increasing in my M1 Finance Growth and M1 Finance Income accounts. Of course, except in down months, as to be expected. And for my cash, I definitely am building up more cash to get that $20,000 mark. And that's going to be about 7.5 months of savings. I know some people recommend a 6-month, but $20,000 is an even number and it looks good. And also, I don't necessarily like the idea of 6-month emergency expenses, because some expenses you might not be able to anticipate. For example, if I were to lose my job and also like the engine on my car kind of took hit at the same time, that's kind of two emergencies at once. So I like to give myself a little bit of breathing room on top of that 6 months. And as far as everything else goes, like my Regions savings account and my Chase accounts, I pretty much keep them low because that money isn't really at work. So there's really no point in keeping high balances in those accounts. So I pretty much take my money and put them all into something that grows my net worth or tries to. And then, of course, my 401k IRA, I have that, and that is retirement accounts. For those accounts, I'm not going to show them here, but basically what it is, it's pretty much just VOO. It just tracks the overall S&P 500 market. And of course, the health savings account there, if I have medical expenses, I could just pay it out through that. And then my car is the Kia Rio 2022, and of course, depreciating asset. So I pretty much forecast out every single month that it loses $250, and I just leave it as that and keep it simple. Now, when it comes to debt, fortunately, I don't really have too much to talk about here because I don't really have a debt. Of course, I did have debt at a certain point, but I decided to just pay off my student loans as quickly as possible because they stopped being deferred. And then at a certain point, I decided to pay off my car loan because I was like, look, do I really want to pay this car loan, or do I want to not worry about the interest and just put my money into appreciating assets instead? and I was sitting on all this extra cash, and I felt that the use of my cash was better to pay off debt. And I was sitting on a bunch of cash anyway, so I thought it was a good idea to pay off that liability. Now, as far as the dividend income goes, like I said, I forecast it out. I actually forecast my expenses, and then I add up the sum of all the dividends every single month. And for the most part, it is currently under 3% per month. But of course, quarterly dividends happen. So in April, dividends did pay for approximately 14%, or would have paid for 14% of my expenses had I been using it for expenses. Of course, I don't use it for expenses. I just reinvest those dividends. So that is pretty much how my net worth operates. And I do also enjoy showing you this because, one, again, it is like a journal over time, a video journal instead of a spreadsheet. It kind of captures my thoughts too of the process. And it also shows you a little bit more in depth. I know a lot of YouTubers pretty much just show you their investment accounts, but I want to show you everything because I think that it shows you a better idea of personal finance as a whole, and people's cash and their cars and whatever it may be, their liabilities, instead of just showing you the values of an investment account. Because, my investment account, it could be, $90,000 around, which it is, but that doesn't really go to show if I have only $1,000 in savings, or if I have a $40,000 car loan, or whatever it may be, like $8,000 in credit card debt. So I want to be kind of transparent about the whole process. And again, I think this thing is a great video journal, and I pretty much did this for years before I started this YouTube channel. And I got the idea of, hey, why not let people follow along, maybe give me advice, criticize me, compare to me. There's a lot of people out there that are my age. I'm 30, and I think my net worth based on what I read online is, of course, somewhat fortunate based on what I see. But you also got to understand, if you don't have this much, is that I dedicate a lot of my time to this. So it's not really like something to necessarily brag about. It's more so just to show you, because of course, if somebody were to work out all the time, of course, they're probably going to have better physical fitness or better body, or, something like that. So dedicating your time to a specific thing, like, tracking your net worth and seeing your changes over time, really brings it to center, and it kind of shows you, where your money is going or how it's growing and how your assets and liabilities may be doing over time. At the same time, there are people that are my age that might be looking at this and saying 155,000 or 156,000, that net worth is nothing. I do have some people in my circle, and I kind of enjoy it in a certain way, because basically I came from, maybe I want to say, lower middle class when I was growing up. So I do have a lot of friends that, unfortunately they are, maybe quite a bit of money in debt, like 50,000 plus, and their net worth is negative. And then at the same time, I also have family members and friends that do have, significantly higher net worth than I do. So, I compare myself to nobody because, I pretty much just think of it as, where was I last month, more so than where do I compare to somebody else, because some people might not have had the opportunity and some people may have had a better opportunity than me. Anyway, that long rant about my personal finance is over, and the kind of thumbnail on this video is how do I grow my net worth with my dividend investments. And I don't really want to cover this too much because I did an in-depth video of my investments. So I'm just going to give it a brief overview, and then I'll have a video link to my portfolio at the end of this video if you want to have an in-depth analysis of my portfolio. But my portfolio is pretty simple. I hold 4 ETFs in total and dollar cost average into these ETFs every single month. I do in one account, this is my growth account, VIG, which is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, and QQQ, the Invesco QQQ Trust, and that pretty much tracks the NASDAQ 100, and the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF tracks a bunch of companies with a history of growing their dividends over time. And this is my growth account, and like I said, I dollar cost average, and if there's an over under, I have it set to 60-40, so M1 Finance pretty much allocates that dollar cost average for me. And then in my income account, I have two very popular dividend ETFs, SCHD and JEPI. Now this portfolio is not as high in value because I am a little bit younger. I'm more focused on growing my capital over time. So I put more of my money into the growth portfolio than the income portfolio. But I have this set up into two different portfolios because I'd like to dynamically switch between the two when the time comes to it. And SCHD is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, tracks 100 dividend paying companies with a history of growing dividends over time with decent yield, and it also uses financial ratios. And then JEPI is the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF. That is a popular monthly ETF. It gives you income through a combination of covered calls and also dividends, both very two popular dividend ETFs. And I don't think that I need to get any more involved in that. I don't go for individual stocks. I kind of keep it as simple as possible. Of course, some might argue, why don't you just buy VU or something like VTI? I get comments on my videos all the time about that. And, it's a completely reasonable argument because that is truly pretty much as simple as possible as you can go. But again, I like to dynamically put my money where I want to, and that is going to kind of show in my financial goals when you understand my 3 financial goals. So I get to put my money where I pretty much want at the time and then just go for that. And of course, this is all taxable accounts. Some people are going to kill me for that, to have this in a taxable account, but listen, based on where I am today, I think that there is a decent chance that I might be able to just quit working before I hit retirement age in like my mid 50s to upper 50s. So I definitely want to be prepared for that too. And I also, like I showed you before, do have a 401k IRA. So it's not like I'm completely skirting away from my retirement savings. That is definitely happening too. I have, mid 5 figures in those accounts currently, which is just going to grow over time, of course, over the next decade or 2 decades. So again, taxable accounts, I'm going to need those if I want to retire before I hit the standard retirement age. All right, so getting into my future goals, as I already said, my goal, which is going to be pretty quick, I think it shouldn't really take me longer than a year to get to, probably even less, is to have a $20,000 emergency fund. And that's going to be about 7.5 month expenses. Again, I like to give myself a little bit of cushion. Goal number 2 is to have $1 million in my taxable brokerage accounts. And then goal number 3 is to have $60,000 in yearly dividends. Now, I don't know which one of these are going to come first. Of course, emergency fund, that's definitely going to happen before I have $1 million in my taxable accounts, or $60,000 a year in dividends. And $1 million I feel like is also going to come before I am getting $60,000 a year in dividends. So this is pretty much the order that it's going to go in. And again, I try to keep it as simple as possible. I don't have like 7 or 8 financial goals. I use 3. And then, of course, each one is probably going to happen at a specific time. Now, again, I am trying to retire before I hit typical retirement age. So what I am going to do is once I hit $1 million in my taxable brokerage accounts, I'm pretty much going to take my money and put it in that income pie, which I showed you before. And then that is going to give me, of course, more dividend income. The primary goal, was what I'm going to shoot for first, is that $1 million in my taxable brokerage. And then once I get that, again, I'm going to shoot for that $60,000 a year in dividends. Now, what's that going to do? That is going to give me $5,000 a month in dividends. And at the same time, if I really need more money, I could always just sell like 1% of my growth account. By then, it's probably going to be like $600,000 or $700,000 or so. So I'll be getting $5,000 a month from dividends, and then maybe every 4 months I can maybe sell 1% of my growth portfolio, or 0.75%, and that'll give me like an extra $6,000 every 4 months or so, or like $12 to $16 or $18,000 a year. So my income would be pretty good. Of course, that's going to be, you know, maybe taxed a bit, but I'm not really concerned too much about that. I mean, I won't be working a job and I'm not like living an extravagant lifestyle either. So I'm not really worried. Of course, this might all change as I get older, and this is just what I think of now. Anyway, I do hope that you all enjoyed this update. Again, I want to show you guys a truly transparent idea of how my net worth grows, not only my investment accounts, but my net worth as a whole. Remember, if you do appreciate content like this, definitely leave this video a like to get this video out there, and also allow me to know if you did enjoy it, and then also subscribe for future content. I'd like to thank you all for sticking around for this long if you have, and I will see you all in the next video.